Pakistan's economic collapse, how a nation lost $20 billion in reserves. On August 15, 2022, Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves hit $9.2 billion. 6 months earlier, they stood at $16.4 billion. In the span of 180 days, the country had hemorrhaged more than $7 billion in cash reserves, money it desperately needed to import food, fuel, and medicine. What happened in those 6 months would push 231 million people toward economic catastrophe. This is the story of Pakistan's economic crisis, from 2021 to 2024. Let's start with who was holding the bag when things fell apart. In August 2021, Imran Khan was Prime Minister. He'd been elected on an anti-corruption platform, promising to clean up Pakistan's notoriously corrupt political system. But Khan inherited an economy already showing serious cracks. The COVID-19 pandemic had ravaged global trade. Pakistan's external debt had ballooned to $112 billion, money borrowed from foreign governments, the World Bank, and private lenders. And Pakistan had a massive problem: it was importing far more than it was exporting. Every month, the country needed dollars it didn't have. Then came the dominoes. In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Pakistan imports nearly 80% of its oil from abroad. When global oil prices spiked, crude went from $90 a barrel to over $130 by March. Pakistan's import bill exploded. The country was spending more dollars just to keep the lights on and cars running. But here's where the real crisis accelerated. In April 2022, Imran Khan lost a no-confidence vote in parliament. He was replaced by Shehbaz Sharif, a seasoned politician from a wealthy business family. Sharif inherited an economy in free fall. By May 2022, Pakistan's current account deficit, the gap between what it owed the world and what it earned, hit $17 billion for that fiscal year alone. The rupee, Pakistan's currency, was collapsing. In January 2022, $1 bought 178 rupees. By June 2022, it took 215 rupees to buy $1. Your savings were evaporating overnight. The government was technically bankrupt. It couldn't pay its debts without emergency loans. In July 2022, Pakistan went to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and formally requested a bailout. This is where it gets brutal. The IMF approved a $6 billion rescue package on August 29, 2022. But there was a catch. The IMF demanded what's called structural adjustment, basically, painful reforms. Pakistan had to drastically cut government spending. It had to raise taxes. It had to eliminate fuel subsidies that kept gas prices artificially low. It had to let the rupee weaken even more. These weren't suggestions, they were conditions tied to the money. The government raised electricity prices by 34% in a single month. Fuel prices went from 165 rupees per litre to over 250 rupees within weeks. The price of a bag of flour doubled. A loaf of bread that cost 20 rupees in 2021 cost 50 rupees by late 2022. Then, in August 2022, monsoon rains arrived. Not normal rains, biblical, catastrophic flooding. 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater. 33 million people were affected. Entire harvests drowned in the fields. Bridges collapsed. The World Health Organization warned of imminent disease outbreaks. Reconstruction costs would exceed $30 billion. Pakistan's already gutted government had virtually no money to respond. Inflation spiraled to 38% by May 2023. Unemployment hit 6.3%. Real wages, what you actually earned in purchasing power, fell by 12% in a single year. The poverty rate spiked. People who weren't poor became poor. The middle class shrunk. By 2023, the ripple effects were everywhere. 1 in 4 Pakistanis was food insecure, meaning they couldn't reliably put enough food on the table. Schools closed because families couldn't afford uniforms or transportation. Electricity was rationed. Rolling blackouts lasted 8 to 12 hours daily in some cities. Here's what changed because of this crisis. Pakistan negotiated a second IMF bailout in 2023 for another $3 billion, with even stricter conditions. The government raised the policy interest rate to 22%, one of the highest in the world, to try to crush inflation. The rupee was formally allowed to trade freely, and it weakened further to 290 per dollar by late 2023. Pakistan's central bank began stricter oversight of corporate lending. But more importantly, the crisis exposed how fragile the country's institutions were. A nation of 231 million people had no buffer, no savings, no resilience. 3 years into this crisis, Pakistan is still recovering. Inflation has cooled, but it remains elevated. The IMF programs continue. Ordinary Pakistanis are still paying the price in squeezed wages and rising costs. The lesson for the world is stark: when a country spends more than it earns for long enough, there's no soft landing. The bill comes due, and ordinary people pay it. This video is for educational purposes only, not financial advice. Subscribe to the Fiscal Record.